Hello, Garland Nixon here, and we're going to talk about something interesting. This whole so-called diversity thing going on in Hollywood. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here, and I'm back after a weekend. If you may have noticed, I've been off the air for a few days. I was in Portland, hanging out, doing a couple odds and ends, and I'm back. So let's talk something that I don't know. I mean, there's wars going on. There's all kinds of craziness happening, but I feel like this is something that's kind of stuck in my craw a little bit. And so I feel like I don't know what I'm going to say, but I'm just going to start. I'm just going to talk about it. And that's what's going on. What is it? And it's obvious, right? Every movie that comes out now, every movie, there's some Spider-Man movie coming out with all female spider people, I guess. You got pretty much every most of the superhero movies, right? They'll like go into some alternative universe and they'll all come back as a diverse group of women. You've got every advertisement, right? And this is interesting, and I'll say, me, I don't care what I say. I look at the advertisement, right? And I'll be watching advertisement after advertisement, and here's the first thing I notice. I'm like, okay, let me see what's going on TV. And I'm like, that's weird. There ain't no white people in the advertisements anymore. Man, I'm old. I remember there used to be white people in advertisements. Ain't no white people in advertisements anymore, right? And I look and it's like, here's an advertisement, and it's always a diverse group of whatever, you know what I mean? And then they got to have the gay person, got to have the Latino person, the Muslim person. Every advertisement looks like a Benetton ad, right? And I'm looking at it, right? And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know, should that bother me? I don't know why, but for some reason it does. For some reason it aggravates me. And I tell you what, this is I'm going to give you my reactions to it. It aggravates me in the same way that if you watch a movie from the 1950s or a TV show from the 1950s or whatever, right? It was like all lily white, it was like a bunch of, I've often said, you watch, there's a famous show called Andy Griffith. And Andy Griffith, was in a town called Mayberry, and they later made Mayberry RFT. And so these were towns in North Carolina. I don't know if anybody's been in North Carolina or the South. A whole lot of black folks, right, in North Carolina and the South. And these TV shows made in the 60s didn't have any black folks. And I thought, how the hell a town in North Carolina with no black folks? That's kind of weird, because you ain't going to find too many towns like that in North Carolina, right? But Hollywood at the time, their job was to portray what the ruling class wanted them to portray, right? And at that time, if we're honest about it, in a class-based society, black people were viewed as the peasant class. And so they weren't involved. They weren't put into, and Hollywood didn't put them in. Hollywood, they weren't in movies, the peasant class people, in the same way. Example. If you're here in the States and you ever watch the Mexican soap operas that are on some of the Latin channels, right? And here's what you'll notice. The Mexican guy that you see walking down the street, who's kind of short and kind of brown, has that indigenous look to it, right? He's got the darker hair. He's got the indigenous features, right? But when you watch a Mexican soap opera, all the people on there look like they're Spaniards. They don't look like the Mexican indigenous people. They look like they're Spaniards, right? And so one of the discussions that we don't have, that we need to have, and if you know me, I don't care, discuss everything, is the concept of Hollywood and movies, etc., and what they're trying to portray to us, and the understanding that what they're trying to portray to us is in itself a form of propaganda, right? And so just because a movie goes the way you would like it to go, or people look like you or don't look like you, or whatever the case, and you're like, yay, they've got people like me again, or oh, there's no people that look like me in the movie, is to miss the point that it's propaganda. And it's to see it through the lens of, this is government propaganda. I remember reading I remember a while back there was one of this show called 24, right? And in 24, and it was something like this kind of superhero spy kind of guy, superhero spy, right? If that ain't propaganda. And some Venezuelan person had a nuke or something crazy, and they had to Venezuela. Um, poses no threat to the United States, right? There was the latest Red Dawn, right, where the U.S., was getting invaded by somebody, right? And then the latest version of Red Dawn, I think it was 2013, North Korea invaded like Washington State. North Korea? Really? We're supposed to believe that North Korea wants to come across the ocean all the way to Washington State and invade. North Korea is the size of Pennsylvania, and we're to believe that they're going to launch some kind of a land invade. Pure propaganda, right? And so when you look at Hollywood and you recognize the level of propaganda that you're getting, I remember what was the movie I saw? Black, the one with Bozeman, what's his name? The guy that died, Wakanda Forever crap, but whatever that was, right? I'm not saying crap. I actually liked the first movie. It was pretty good, right? It was good action. But my point being is, even in that movie, there was a CIA guy, and he was a good guy. The CIA guy was the good guy. There was the latest Jurassic Park. And in the latest Jurassic Park, a group of young and, of course, diverse CIA agents had like infiltrated this company that was run by Big Evil Guy, right? And company that was run by Big Evil Guy was doing terrible, evil things to kill lots of people in the world and do evil things. And diverse group of CIA agents were there to save the world and do good. And I'm like, the CIA does it does the opposite of saving the world and do good, and B, if there's some rich and powerful guy who's evil and owns the company, the CIA is probably backing the company, supporting the company, and probably helping the company to do evil and threaten them if they don't do evil. But the bottom line is that gets me down to my first pole position, shall we say, my first node, my first point in this conversation, and that is that when you understand that Hollywood is pushing the message of the ruling elite, pushing the message of the state, pushing the message of the intelligence community, then you understand that there is a paradox here, because the paradox is the EU, I mean, excuse me, the EU, Hollywood is basically pushing an agenda that they're arguing is good and positive. It's diversity. It's everybody's got to be, have an blah blah blah, have a fair chance, stuff like that. That's allegedly what they're pushing. Not really. On behalf of the intelligence agencies, the military industrial complex. In fact, let me see if I can find it. Let me see. In fact, Pentagon, I'm going to do this. Office in HOLLYWOOD. Okay, I'm see if I can find it. The Pentagon. Here's an article. Now, this is, keep in mind something. This is from the U.S. Defense Department. This is from okay. Let's look at this. This is from defense.gov, the U.S. Department of Defense, right? Let's look at it. How and why the DoD works with Hollywood. The Department of Defense has a long-standing relationship with Hollywood. Duh! In fact, it's been working with filmmakers for nearly 100 years with a goal that's twofold. I love this. Twofold. To accurately depict military stories and make sure sensitive information isn't disclosed, right? Okay. Hollywood's office focuses on the Army, while each other branch of the armed forces, include the Coast Guard, has its own Hollywood liaison office, but they coordinate with each other, and projects are doled out to various installations to best accommodate filmmakers, right? Okay, let's go back one. Article after article. Here's one. This is the last one we'll go to. How Hollywood became the unofficial propaganda arm of the U.S. military. Second World War launched Hollywood into a propaganda war that continues to this day, right? And on they go. So the bottom line is, let me kill that. So the bottom line is, we'll start off by saying this, in case you didn't know it, in case you think that there's some kind of a fuzzy, amorphous relationship between Hollywood and the Pentagon and that they're trying to hide it. No, they're not trying to hide it. That's what they do. That's who they are. Although they claim they're doing it for good reasons, for accuracy, etc. When you look at it, you'll find that Hollywood constantly makes movies that takes the position of the foreign policy, neocon foreign policy establishment. That's what they do. If the US government doesn't like Libya, doesn't like whatever, Nicaragua, you name it, then Hollywood movies, those people are persona non grata as far as being good guys. They can only be bad guys. We get propaganda. Whether it's Red Dawn, you name it, it's always a bunch of propaganda. In fact, the original Red Dawn, which was made in the 80s, where the Russians supposedly invaded the United States, and they had a bunch of people from Central America, and they were like Nicaragua, if I remember correctly, it was Libyans. It was all the people that the Reagan administration was trying to convince people were their enemies. In the original Red Dawn, they joined in with the Russians and invaded us. So bottom line was, you know, and they're like the Russians attack people with nukes and blah, blah, all the things that they needed to push their propaganda. So today, when I turn on an advertisement and there's the Benetton ad look, right? When I turn on an advertisement and there's a diverse group of females and there's a gay couple and there's the Muslim guy and they're blah, 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 I smell a rat. Because, you know what I always say, you are what your record says you are. I always smell a rat because the history tells us that's what they do, right? And when I see Tony Blinken say that, hey, we're going to have rainbow flags now on U.S. embassies around the world. Really? That's what they're doing. Let me see if I can find that. And what I realize is this. They don't give a crap about gay people. Let me see what we got. Here we go. Here we go. Let's take a look at this. There we go. Biden administration grants blanket authorization to fly pride flags at embassies. U.S. missions overseas can once again fly the pride flag on their official flag with a cable, blah, 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 right? So now you got all of these U.S. embassies flying the pride flag, right? Now, what else do we know about U.S. embassies around the world? They're loaded with CIA agents. They're all a fraud. They're not embassies. They're intelligence outposts that they use to overthrow governments. Right. So it's so the good news is good news for your country. The embassy is going to have a pride flag. Bad news is they're going to try to kill all your people, overthrow your government, and steal all your resources. Right. It's rainbow flag imperialism. So what I'm saying is this. It's not anti-gay or anti-diversity or anti-then. It's I know when I smell a rat. I know when I'm being had. I know when I'm being took. I know when I'm being lied to. And when I turn on every advertisement now, in the same way that in the 1960s, if you had to turn on Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best, things like that, all you would have saw was all white, all lily white people. And you could look at that and say, well, that ain't what America looks like. And that's not even what the world looks like. What the hell is that? You knew, well, that's propaganda. This is the way they want to portray America. And if they brought in like a black person, then he was, how it was. He was dancing around, tap dancing or something. He was Sammy Davis Jr. tap dancing or something. That was it, or he was the maid, the maid, the butler, whatever, right? That was propaganda. That was cultural propaganda, right? And what we're seeing now is cultural propaganda. That's all it is. It is not meant for the betterment of these groups. No, they don't give a damn about the betterment of these groups, because if they were concerned about the betterment of these groups, they wouldn't be starting wars. So these groups would all get killed in wars. They wouldn't be I'll put it like this. What good does it do when this diverse group of people, what put them on an advertisement for Pfizer? You put them on an advertisement for Boeing or Lockheed Martin, right? So the question, Walmart. So the question is, what are they advertising? Start there. We've got a diverse group of people advertising some corporation that's making genetically modified food, meat, all of the above, giving you one of those pills. Hey, congratulations, we've got a new pill that'll clear up skin blotches, right? And you're like, oh man, I don't want skin blotches. Hey, it'll clear up skin blotches. Give me some of that. And at the end of the advertisement, it's like, may cause sudden death, may cause lung cancer, hair cancer, eye cancer, may cause your sexual organs to fall out off, may cause you to grow 10 extra fingers, but it'll clear up skin blotches pretty good. And by the way, here's a diverse group of people to tell you about it. We've got a gay couple. We've got a gender non-binary person. We've got 3 Black people, a Latino guy, and some person who looked kind of Muslim-y, but we're not really sure. That's what you got to advertise. Think about what they're advertising for it starts. And then go to the type of movies and the propaganda. It means nothing. It's nothing but propaganda. And there were people who will get mad at me for making this for making this video and saying you're being had. Because here's the word, right? The word they use is diversity. It's diversity. We're having a diverse group of whatever, right? In reality, it's tokenism. It's this wild swing, right? From over here, we got all white people. Let's swing way over here where it's no white people, right? And what that tells me is this: you're not just trying to get the best people you can. You're not trying to provide opportunity. You're not trying to do anything like that. You're not trying to do something positive, right? What we're supposed to infer from this Benetton ad looking advertisement for Pfizer and Lockheed Martin and Walmart that's got people of all diverse sexes and races and everything, right? What we're supposed to get from that is that they're doing good things, that they're there, they're going to provide opportunities for people, and they're going to provide diverse whatever the hell. And we're supposed to say they're good guys, they're good girls, they're good, I don't know, we can't even say guys anymore, they're good people, right? And what you end up with is a game that the intelligence community, the corporations, and the powerful can play, and wherein they don't have to address the issue of economics. People are like, I can't pay my bills. I don't have any savings. Can't pay my college loans. What about a job with some benefits? I need health care, and it would be nice if I had a retirement, and these jobs don't have retirements anymore, and blah, blah. And so when people start asking, when this diverse group of women and gay people and gender non-binary and a binary and all that stuff, people say, but I need health care, I need decent streets and infrastructure, things like that, right? They ain't answering that question. That's not happening. This is a way to use tokenism to avoid addressing the issues of economics, the issues of class, the issues of jobs, the issues of needs of the masses, the issues of infrastructure, right? They want to fix infrastructure. They got no need to fix infrastructure. Think about this. When we had industry here, the captains of industry, the people who were building things, right? You're building things in your factories, and you needed infrastructure. You needed a good electrical grid so they could run power to your corporation, to your industry, your company, and that your company could run. You needed good roads so that the trucks and the trains and things like that, when you made in your factory, you made widgets, right? You needed trains to ship the widgets out. You needed good roads for the trucks to drive your widgets. So when we had industry, it was necessary to have good infrastructure, so that when the industry made its widgets, you could ship them to a port that was taken care of. You had the electricity and the things you needed to run the factory. You had the good roads that you needed to drive the widgets across. So at that time, when the people in power were making money through making things, they needed infrastructure to ship those things. They needed people who are educated to work in their factories. So they needed an education system. All of these things they needed because they had factories and they had to make stuff and ship that stuff around. And what did the government do? It invested in infrastructure then. Why? Because the people with power needed infrastructure because they were making things, right? Now, guess what? They ain't making nothing. They don't need infrastructure. And guess what? They ain't building it. They're not putting any money into infrastructure because then they would be doing it for you, and they don't do it for you. People are like, we need an infrastructure bill. If you look at Biden's infrastructure bill, what was it? It was neoliberalism, right? It was whatever you want to call it. What was it? What is it really doing? In Biden's latest infrastructure bill, and I'm not getting sidetracked here, this is part of my conversation. In the latest infrastructure bill, what they said was, we're going to allow towns and companies to sell off things, like they'll sell off your water, they'll sell off your roads, they'll sell off this and that, and they can use that money to build other things. In other words, it's a way to sell off the roads, where now you're going to have to pay tolls to go across any road or bridge, parking spots, water, sewage, to sell all that stuff off to the corporation so the corporations could make money on that. So instead of actually rebuilding infrastructure, you're selling the infrastructure off, putting it in the hands for pennies on the dollar, no doubt, putting it in the hands of the corporations so the corporations can now use the infrastructure in the same way they use college. College used to be to educate people, and they needed fairly educated people at least to run the factories. They ain't got no factories anymore. They don't need you educated. Instead, they'll use education to make a profit off of you. And now they don't need infrastructure because they don't make things, and they don't need to move them around on good roads, and they don't need good electrical grids to run their factories with power. They don't need that, so it ain't doing that for you. So what are they going to do? They're going to sell it off to the corporation so that the corporations can now use that to extract the money from you, because that's the job of our government, to extract money from the middle class, to do the same thing to you that they do to the people in Latin America and Africa and the global South, to extract their money and resources. And they're doing the same damn thing to you. And how do they get away with it? Hollywood. That's how they get away with it. By putting up a fraud, by putting up a fake to make you think they're looking out for your best interest, to use tokenism, and then use that to attack you. So then they can ask you a question. Hey, I got a question for you. And you're like, well, let's say Garland was to run for office tomorrow. Hey, I'm running for president. All right. And I was to go on, we're bringing MSNBC is going to bring Garland. They'd say, Russia, you're a Russian bot, an Iranian. Did we mention China and Cuba and Venezuela too? And then they would say, all right, Garland, we got a question for you, right? And it would be, what is the definition of a woman? Why? Now, when you think about that question, don't think about the question for a second. Think about who they ask it to. Do they ask Joe Biden what's the definition of a woman? Do they ask someone who is chosen by the ruling class to represent them and to pretend to be a member of our government, to pretend to represent us, to pretend to be part of a democracy, when really they just represent the ruling elite, right? Who do they ask? What is the definition of a woman? That is not a question. That is an attack, a thinly veiled attack, disguised as a question. They only ask that question to people they want to take out. It has nothing to do with the definition of a woman. If they were to ask me, Garland, what's the definition of a woman? I'd say it's a noun. Woman? Yeah, noun. No, but what is a woman? I'd say what you're asking me is, what is a woman? It's a sound. Woman, it's a sound. Like, that's a sound. I can make the sound, and you can say, what's that mean? I can say it means, and I can point to a cow and say, that's what it means. So instead of using the word cow, I use the word, and it means cow, right? The words are just sounds. Sounds, or we write them down, they're symbols. What you're asking is, what does that sound or symbol mean? And as Humpty Dumpty said in Through the Looking Glass, my words mean exactly what I say they mean. Nothing more, nothing less. So if they bring me on, Garland, what's the definition of a woman? I'd say it's a noun. Well, what do you mean when you say woman? I mean noun. I know what a woman is. You know what a woman is. When I look at a flower, I know what it is. I put it like this. You have animals that eat, let's say, grass, or an animal that eats a particular kind of plant, right? I think, what is it? Pandas eat eucalyptus leaves or something. Pandas don't have a word for eucalyptus leaves, but they know one when they see one, don't they? They know, hey, I'm eating that. And then there's another kind of leaf. I might have got that wrong, but I think it is eucalyptus leaves that they eat. But whatever they eat, right? The panda looks at it, he knows what it is. He doesn't have a word for it. He doesn't need a word for it because he knows what it is and he knows what to eat and what not to eat, right? Animals don't need words. When this lion sees a gazelle, he doesn't think, well, I can't eat that. Why? Because I don't know what it is. I don't have a word for it. Somebody comes along, it's a gazelle. Oh, thank God, I would have starved to death if you hadn't given me a word for that thing. No, he knows what it is and he's going to eat it. We, without words, know what things are. So when someone says, what is the definition of a woman? You already know what it is. I know what it is. You know what it is. You know what it is. I don't need a word for it. I don't have to have a word for it. And I know that that's an attack. I know that they're not going to ask that to people. That's a question that's only asked to people that they don't like, that they want to take out. And they want to ask that question so they can use any answer you give them as an attack. And people get caught up in that, hung up in that. What's the definition of a woman? And people get hung up in that stuff. Well, I think it's got to be this. It's got to be that. I don't even get hung up in it because I understand they're not really asking me that. They're throwing a punch. And what do? There's two ways you can, there's various ways you can deal with a punch. You can block, boom, your basic blocks, right? You can block a punch. You can block a punch this way. There's a number of ways, or you can do push blocks. You can do a number of blocks, right? You can block a punch, or what I prefer is what? As you're blocking, boom, a hand comes up, pat, right on the chin. Bop, right on the chin, right? Or boom, poke the eyes, or boom, hit the throat, right? But what you do is, as the block's coming up, you strike. So when someone throws a punch, instead of just blocking the punch, or however you block that punch, or, whatever the case may be, you block that punch, you strike at the same time you block the punch. So they pay a price for throwing the punch. You let them know, whenever you punch me, whenever you throw a blow, you're going to pay a price. You're going to get there's going to be a disincentive for you to punch me, because that punch is going to cost you every single time, right? And so I look at it like this. If somebody's asking you one of these questions, what is the definition of a woman? That's a thinly veiled attack. So your answer has to contain a counterattack, because it ain't a question. It has nothing to do with good or bad or right or wrong or women or diversity or what's in the or how can we further women. But let me ask you this. If somebody says, what's the definition of a woman? How does that further anything for women? How does that help women? It doesn't. It's not intended to help women. It's intended to hit you in the head with a blunt object. And that's what you got to understand when you get a lot of this diversity questions and discussion. You should immediately determine, is this an intellectual exercise where somebody's saying, I'm curious, what do you think is the definition of this or that and why? And now, if that person is not doing that in an aggressive and assertive and adversarial way, I don't mind having a discussion about anything in a non-adversarial way. That's great, a philosophical discussion. But if it's you use the wrong pronouns so I can attack you, I understand. They only do that to their enemies. Do you remember the whole Me Too movement and what washed that ashore? It's when Tara Reid came out and said, Joe Biden groped me, right? He groped me. And everybody was like, ooh, well, now come to think of it, maybe that Me Too stuff wasn't all it was cracked up to be. Why? Because it was just the weaponization of a cultural issue to go after their enemies, nothing more, nothing less. And sadly, I have a caller all the time on my one show on WPFW or Pacifica, and he'll go get into an anti-gay thing, right? And I say, you're missing the point. You're missing a point, period. This isn't about gay people or black people or diverse people. In fact, it's far worse than that. It is the establishment. It is the people in charge using these groups for human shields. It's Tony Blinken saying, I'm going to put up a rainbow flag on a U.S. embassy, and that's going to imply that we're there for good things. We're there for the goodness of all, and we're looking out for all diverse groups. The implication is, I'm here to help gay people. In reality, it's loaded with CIA operatives in the embassy. They're handing out guns. They're helping terrorists. They're funding ISIS. They're giving money to the Azov Battalion, goose-stepping, Sieg Heil people with Hitler tattoos all over them. That's what it is. So you are using gay people, whatever group you're having, for nefarious, evil, and clandestine purposes. So what I don't want to do is get mad at that group and blame them when the fact is it's all a fraud on us. It has nothing to, the truth of the fact of the matter is it has nothing to do with those groups. Nothing to do with them. So when you turn on when I turn on the advertisement and I see, hey, what we got an advertisement, what is it? And it's like, hey, the diverse group. Who does, first of all, who does that? Who does that? Like, I can remember when I was younger, we used to hang out at this place called Fells Point every weekend. And in Fells Point, there was all kind of, we are young, and there's bars all over the place, and there's girls running around giggling at night on a Saturday night. There's guys running around giggling, and there's beer flowing, and people are going to the Horseshoe Came In On Saloon, Bertha's Muscles, and all that kind of stuff, right? They're going into these Septembers, that was a bar. They're going in and out, and they're giggling and sniggling and having fun, right? But it wasn't about, hey, we're going hanging out tonight, Garland. Well, we can't go. Why? We don't have a Muslim guy. We didn't do that. Hey, what do we got? Well, let's see. We got Jeff, Fred, and Bill. Let's take a look. Well, we got a white guy, but did we have a Latino guy? No. Yeah, good. And how about a woman? Look, can we find anyone that's gay? We'll get a gay woman with us. A Latino. Who does that? Nobody. Nobody does. That's not real life. See, that's the thing about it. It's not real life. Do people have friends that may be whatever? Sure. But they don't go searching. They don't go making sure that when they get in the car, we all have this diverse group that you see on this advertisement. It's fake. It's a fraud. It's an insult to our intelligence. It's to imply that we are not substantive. How do I meet my friends? You're in class in college, and you're sitting next to somebody, and you start laughing and you're joking, and you're like, what are you doing tonight, man? I'm gonna go drink some brew over at the such and such dorm. I'm in. You don't be like, well, first of all, I can't do. Why? Because we're the same race, and I only hang. I got to make sure. And by the way, when I get there, is there going to be a diverse group of people drinking from the beer bong? Who does that in college? Nobody. That's not reality. You meet your friends because you talk, and you're like, what do you do? Man, I'm in a whatever, you know what I mean? I'm in a classic hip hop. Oh, really? Me too. Or not me. I'm in a, you're talking to somebody and you're like, hey, that's a great song you're playing on your little boombox there. And the guy's like, yeah, I'm really into classical music. You're like, oh, I recognize it. That's Brahms. I love classical music. Me too. Hey, come to think of it, got a couple of buddies of mine, and we're going to a classical musical festival a week from Friday. And you're like, hey, there's a classical musical festival in town? Yeah, I'm in. And there you've got a new friend. And you don't go like, hey, well, I'd like to go with you, buddy, but we're the same race. And do you have a Jewish person that can go with us? Maybe then we could. That's not how the world works. They insult our intelligence to say that. It's the opposite. Usually it has something to do with you like the same type of, you're into the same kind of movies, you're into sports, you're into something. Hey, you're going fishing. I've met people fishing and ended up being fishing buddies because I met them fishing. Oh man, let's go up to, I met some guys from Pennsylvania one time on a fishing trip, and they're like, yeah, we go up to Connecticut. And this guy takes us out on a lake, and we catch these big crappies. And I'm like, and it was like a white guy and a black guy that came down from Philly to go fishing in Chesapeake Bay. And I'm like, oh my God, somewhere to catch big crappies? Yeah, we're going to go. We go every December. Why don't you call us? We're looking for another person. Did I go? Well, let's see. A white guy and a black guy. Okay, yeah, I can go. You have maybe a Latino friend we could bring? No, I want to go catch crappie. That's it. That's what that was about. That's the way the real world works. I didn't even look at him and say, well, let's see, you got one white guy and one black guy. I can go. But then it'll be two black guys and a white guy. That's not going to work. Maybe an Asian guy? I don't know. What can we do? No. We want to catch crappies. We're fishermen. That's the way the real world works. That's the way those of us out here who work and make a living and have friends and families or whatever, that's the way we do things. But in Hollywood, they're going to give us this fake and fraud, and then they can attack us. They can look at us and say, yeah, you're not diverse enough. You're not going along with the plan. You're not using the right pronouns, things like that. And we're out here where people have to make a living and put a roof over their head and pay their bills. That's where we are. That's what our big thing. And let me add this, and I think this is of consequence. This is of consequence. I think about this. There was a time when the America was apartheid, and everybody that knows me knows I'll talk about anything. Race, the issue of race, could care less. I'll talk about it. It's real. Yeah, I'm a philosophical minded person, and a philosophical minded person has to be willing to talk about any and everything from an intellectual perspective, right? Okay, so there was a time in America where complete apartheid. If a black guy wanted a job as a fireman, wasn't happening. You go to Hollywood, we can give you a job, but you got to be a tap dancer or something. Hey, we'll give you a job. What are you gonna be? You can. Would you prefer to be the maid or the butler? Right? That was reality. I don't think that's fair. Most people today would look at it and say, "Well, that's not fair." Right? Not fair. The black guy goes to Hollywood. He's a good actor. He wants to be an opportunity to act. Give you an example. Paul Robeson. So Paul Robeson Jr., who was related a story to me about his father, a true story. And he said, look, my dad, this was like in 1940s or whatever, and he was an international star, right? Paul Robeson was an international star. He was one of the considered, probably the greatest baritone who've ever lived, right? And so some Hollywood, and he was making movies all over the world. The guy was huge and just a brilliant talent, entertainer. And some Hollywood execs saw that, and you know what they thought: cha-ching, we can make money. So they come to his home, and they say, look, here's what we're willing to do. We want you to make 5 movies. We're going to give you $2 million. Think about $2 million in the 1940s. That was like $100 million contract in this day and age. We'll give you $2 million and 5 movies, and you're going to be the star. We're going to make you the star of all stars. His talent was without question, brilliant, just a stellar talent. So we're going to, okay. He's like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. Wow, 2 million, that's a lot. Hey, let's get down. And they said, the only thing is, we know you don't like this, but you're going to have to be like a maid or butler. You'll be the star. You'll sing your songs. You'll do all the stuff. And Paul Robeson said, I ain't going to do it. Oh, well, you have to do it. He tore the check up and said, get out of my house. Goodbye. I'm not doing it. Right? Why? Because he's like, I'm not going to go and pretend that black people have to be second-class citizens. That was great. A man who stood for what he believed in. I love that, right? And let me add this about Paul Robeson. Did Paul Robeson stand for black people and African freedom worldwide? Yes, he did. Did he go to the north of England? Did he stand for these white coal miners and workers in England and trade unionists and industrial workers and that were getting beaten down? He absolutely did. He stood for them. He stood for justice regardless of the race. He certainly understood that, black people weren't getting a fair deal at that place in time, and he stood for that, but he stood for workers and everyone. He would call literally these union halls in England where the coal miners were and sing over the rate when he couldn't go there. When they took his passport, he'd call and sing to these. He loved these people and they loved him. Okay. Beautiful. That's the way it's supposed to be. Now, tell me, I don't know, maybe you think I'm wrong. I don't. If some people do, I don't really care. This is my position, like it or not like it. And I've talked about this before. I've driven through Maryland. I live in Maryland, wealthy state, a lot of money, education, you name it, right? And next to Maryland is West Virginia, a beautiful friggin' state. Beautiful state. West Virginia is absolutely gorgeous, but a very poor state. And I've driven through. I remember one time I drove to go to this thing in Wheeling, West Virginia. And I'm riding through the mountains and, I saw that third world poverty. It's like I've ridden through the backwoods of Mississippi, driven through just to look, and you see that third world poverty. I remember one time in Mississippi, in this little town, and right in the middle of this little country town, there was like 5 or 6 school buses sitting on blocks that had smokestacks, where people had just taken school buses and decided, I'm going to make this my house. They had a stove in there and what have you, and it was like a little village, like a little school bus village. I'd never seen anything like it. I'm like, holy crap, these people are really poor. Rode through West Virginia, right? And you see dire poverty, not black dire poverty, not white dire poverty, dire poverty. You're riding along and you see this friggin' trailer sitting on the side of a mountain with like sticks holding it up, and you're like, for God's sake, I couldn't sleep in that for a second. I think that the sticks are going to break and I'm going to roll down a hill in a flat spot in the town, right? And I see, throughout Appalachia, very, very poor black and white people, poverty, right? And I wouldn't want to say, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to pull all the black people out and give them a fair shot and give them a good job and make their lives better and leave the poor white folks, or vice versa. I wouldn't want to do that, would I? No, that wouldn't be what I believe in. And I look at Hollywood and I say to myself, I don't think it was fair when they said to Paul Robeson, you have to be a maid or a butler or a driver. When black people who are well talented went to Hollywood and they said, nah, we can't give you a leading role. We can't give you a role at all. That wasn't fair, was it? So is it fair today when some white guy takes acting classes and hones his skills and he goes to Hollywood and he can't get a job because now, back then it was, we only hire white people. Sorry, our advertisements are all white. Look at the old advertisements from the 70s and 60s. All white. Ain't no black folks in those. I don't care what they're selling. Ain't a lot of black folks, right? Maybe a Popeye's chicken or something. That's about all they're going to give black folks, right? If I don't think that's fair, do I think it's fair that white guys who want to be an actor and who hone their skills and they go to Hollywood and they read for a part and they don't get it because, hey, sorry, white guy, you ain't in no more. It's all about black people. Now, if you were a overweight woman of color with like really short hair who, you know, wouldn't be reflected in Hollywood in the past, now you would be reflected in Hollywood. So this is what we're going to do. Sorry. No job for you here, buddy. I look at it and I say, well, I don't think that's fair either. See, people like me and people, well, I don't know about you, people like me, it's about justice to me. It ain't about justice for black folks, ain't about justice for white folks. Now, to some extent, you can take into account, I can make arguments about historically people groups being held back and that's not fair and that should be dealt with. Yes, certainly I can make that argument. That's a different argument. I can make the argument and I can point to Native Americans and I can say, what the hell am I doing driving onto a Native American reservation and 30% of the people don't even have running water? And they don't, and they're living in shambles and shacks. That's unthinkable. The government, yet we got hundreds of billions of dollars for war, and we can't provide the most basic infrastructure on a Native American reservation. That is an embarrassment to this country. And it's unfair. And I can look at that and say, that ain't right. We need to, first of all, Native Americans, it was their land. It was taken from them unfairly, and they need to be fairly dealt with and compensated, at least give them decent housing and running water and electricity, for God's sake. It's a humiliation to me that our country doesn't do that. But that's so that's part of this conversation. It's the part that says this: making a diverse advertisement for Walmart is not going to do anything to help the poor Native American people. It ain't going to fix anything. It's not going to change ideas. It's not going to do anything but aggravate people like me who say, I can see through this. It looks like a fraud to me. I smell a rat. In the same way, when I turn on Jurassic Park and the CIA's the good guy, what's the guy's name? What's the woman's name? Zell Zodana or something. She was the really pretty blue lady in Guardians of the Galaxy, right? She was in Guardians of the Galaxy. And now there's some show that she's doing where she's like a CIA agent who's going around the world doing good, stopping the bad guys, right? Well, when I see that, I smell a rat. Oh, we've got a diverse female who's, oh, she's got a great part. Oh, isn't that wonderful? What is it? Oh, she's a intelligence agency who's going around the world doing good. No, I'm not down for that. CIA, an intelligence operative. That's the latest thing. The intelligence operative that's going around the world doing good. How, far is that from the truth? Right. So, in the same way that when I see a diverse female who's being a intelligence, and don't get me wrong, Zell Zodana is in fact a good actress and a very beautiful woman. So I'm not saying that they missed the mark on giving her, she's a good actress and she's pretty well great. Hey, she's the kind of person that Hollywood should put in a movie. Great. She looks good. She's got a lot of talent. Wonderful. But my point is, they're still making doing this thing with the good CIA agents. So I still understand that they're using a beautiful actress talented actress to try to train me that the intelligence agencies are here for the good of the order when I know better. I know better. I still remember there was this. I don't know if it's still out. There was a TV show called Madam Secretary, and the woman was the secretary. She was Hillary Clinton. She had the blonde hair. She looked like Hillary. She had the stoic, emotionless look of a sociopath that Hillary has, right? And that was prior to Hillary running for that was a way to make Hillary, to give people the idea that Hillary Clinton is the right person and she's a leader and all this kind of crap. That's what you get. So I understand that Hollywood is propaganda. And if Hollywood is propaganda when it comes to using Zoe Saldana as a CIA operative, who's the good person, having a diverse group of CIA operatives take over a country of Mr. Evil to do good when it comes to Jurassic Park or World or whatever the hell it is. When it comes to watching the Black Panther and this guy comes along to help them in a bar and he's a CIA agent and he's a good guy. So if in fact that's propaganda that's not in my best interest, which it is, then I can assume that Hollywood ain't doing anything in my best interest. And when I see the advertisement for whatever the hell, Wrigley Spearmint Gum, and it is a group of diverse women, I know they ain't doing it for the good of the order to help women get jobs. That ain't what it's about. Not what it's about. It is now the thing to do. And it is now the cultural thing to do, to pretend, and this is the part that kills me, that the United States is the good guys, right? We're the good guys, man. We're standing out for cultural diversity. Right now, that same Hollywood that's got the, diverse group of women in every advertisement, that same Hollywood will bring in a bunch of guys from the Azov Battalion who are goose stepping around Hollywood with their dog-eared copy of Mein Kampf and pin all kind of badges all to them. That they'll make a movie about the white helmets, a bunch of intelligence operatives who are pushing a dirty war against Syria, and then they'll give that an award and say, yes, the white helmets, they're the good guys, which is nothing but an intelligence operation. They will do stand up for every horrible, terrible group. Right now, what are they standing up for? They're standing up for what's going on in Gaza, for the attacks that's going on civilians in Gaza. So how can it be that you're the good guys? How can it be that you're doing good things, that when it comes to the most horrible people in groups on earth, the most vicious brutalities that are happening on earth, you've got a diverse group of women who are either superheroes in the latest movie or selling Walmart, Lockheed, and Pfizer on the latest advertisement? So you're such a good guy. At the same time, you're pushing neo-Nazis and genocide. I know I'm being had. I know you're not doing this for the good of the order, and it doesn't even come across as the good of the order. I know that you're doing this. This is the latest propaganda campaign to remind Americans that we're the good guys and we're doing good things. And what's interesting about it is this: the results. They're doing these movies, one movie after another, right? And they got into this thing where every single movie, all of the superheroes are all women. No men anymore. There was a time when there were male superheroes only, and you may had Wonder Woman or Catwoman or something, but there was only male superheroes. And now there's only female superheroes. 99% of them. You turn on Marvel, Disney, whatever, and it's like I'm watching this show that actually, I gotta say, had the potential to be really good. And it was on Apple TV, and it was, what's the guy's name? Idris Elba, right? And it was called Hijack, and it was like a 5 or 6 part series. And he was on this plane, and there were hijackers on the plane. I'm not going to give it away, but there was stuff going on the ground. People was trying to figure out if the plane was being hijacked or not, and all kinds of good stuff, right? And the premise of the movie was really good. Idris Elba was really incredible acting in that movie, right? It had the potential to be a good movie, but there was the propaganda end. And here's what I mean. In that movie, There was a woman who was like, there was somebody who was doing the investigation from in the airport. It was a woman. There was somebody in charge of the airport. It was a woman. There was someone in charge of like the British Home Secretary's office or some such crap like that that had to do with it. It was a woman. Every person who was in any position of authority in that movie was a woman. No men in position of authority at all. It just ain't real. You know what I mean? It's just like, I know what you're doing. You're like trying to do the make it appear as though that's good thing, that's something or whatever. It's not real. It comes across, this is the word that we use in Zen that aggravates people. It comes across as contrived. It's just contrived. And the movie had such a potential to be a good movie. I actually enjoyed it if I could turn my back on that stuff. The other thing was this. As I said, okay, I watched Guardians of the Galaxy. That the first one, I loved it, right? And there was whatever the guy, Star-Lord, right? And there's Zoe Saldana, and she's got on the leather and the, you know, and she was absolutely beautiful. So you kind of thought that the Star-Lord, whatever his name was, at some point, he's a good-looking guy. And you think to themselves, he's a good-looking guy. She's gorgeous. There's going to be some sexual tension. There's going to be something. And it came about, right? And you saw it coming a mile away. You got, you know how the movies are. They got two good-looking people. You're like, yeah, they got to get together. Okay. And so, oh God, I lost my place here for a second here. Oh, okay. I was talking about hijack. So there you go. You got this good-looking guy, this gorgeous woman in a tight leather outfit. You know something's going to go down, and it makes sense to you, and you're anticipating it, and you're like, "Come on, man, make your move, man. She's gorgeous. You got a chance." She's kind of looking at her eyes at you. Ain't a bad-looking guy. Make your move, dude. Make your move. Right? You're waiting. You're kind of want to go in the movie and nudge him, dude. Make your move. Right? Okay. And because you're watching the movie, you know, you're into that stuff. And it gets to the point where you want to see the two be in love and you want to see them happy and all that stuff. There's, you know, an inclination of humans to want other people to be happy and to want somebody else to have a nice romantic relationship when you're watching a movie. So you're like, dude, go after Zoe Saldana. How can you not do that? Make your move. Okay. Why do I say that? Because I'm watching this movie with Idris Elba. And there was this woman that was supposed to be the love interest. So he liked her, and there was a cop. That was his ex-girlfriend. This was his ex-wife girlfriend he had a kid by. Meanwhile, there's a cop who was her current boyfriend, right? And so there was this tension because you could tell he loved her and he wanted her back, and the cop wanted her. So she was the woman that everybody wanted. Idris Elba wanted her. Idris Elba, he's a good-looking guy, right? He's a, you know, in shape and all that. You know, the women like Idris Elba. This other guy, I don't know his name. I've seen him before. He was a white guy, good-looking guy. So you figured here's two guys who can get any babe they want. And so here's a woman that they're both after, right? And to say she was not attractive. I'll put it like this. Let's start here. I don't know if she had a shape. Didn't appear so, but they had her dressed up. She had really, really short hair. She had straight clothes. There was not a hint of sexuality to her. Zoe Saldana, she was not. They had completely taken all the femininity out of her, right? Her hair was short. She was unattractive. And guess what they made her? Of course, in this movie, of course, she was a physics professor. You know what it was? Why? She was not just a sexual object like Zoe Saldana. She was an intelligent person. She was a physics professor, and she dressed that didn't show her body in any way. She dressed pretty much like a guy. You know, she had like a jacket on and didn't appear to have much of a chest. You know, it was kind of straight. I don't know if they did that, and everything was straight, and her hair was straight, and it was like, and I'm like, is she even supposed to represent a woman? I'm used to a movie. Where's Zoe Saldana and Star-Lord guy? And there, yeah, go ahead, go for it. Hey, two great looking people, do your thing. And then I watch this movie, and it's like, this is Idris Elba, right? Women just pant and fall on the ground. Not all women. I guess he ain't all women's cup of tea, but let's face it, he's the kind of guy that a lot of women like. And whatever the white guy's name is, I don't know his name. Same kind of guy, tall, good-looking guy, good shape, macho, manly, square jaw, you know what I mean? And you're like, that's the kind of guy that women are really going to chase after, right? And you look at her and you're like, ain't neither one of these guys going to give her the time of day. That's reality, right? I'm sorry. They ain't giving her the time. That's not it. These two guys are not going to be breaking their neck, crying, killing themselves over her in a movie. You know, it'd be like thinking you're going to put me in a movie. Hey, what's happening? Well, the Halle Berry and someone else are all after Garland Nixon. He's the love interest in this movie. Garland Nixon is a whatever, fill in the blank. He's a I don't know, you know, a cop, you know, a fireman or whatever. And Halle Berry and whoever the hell else, you know, they're in this movie. They're both in love with him and they're fighting and beating him. That ain't happening. Halle Berry and whoever this other beautiful star is, if people looked at that, they'd be like, I mean, I like Garland, he's my friend, but Halle Berry and company, they ain't killing herself over this dude. This is not credible. I'm sorry. I wouldn't expect to get that part. You know what I expect to get that part? Idris Elba. There you go. Or the white guy that was the cop, one of them. Fine. Put them in there. And then Halle Berry and whoever are chasing after this guy. Makes perfect sense. And I watched that movie and I'm like, yeah, it makes sense to me. If they came to me, Garland would like to give you the part. You're going to be the heartthrob. And Halle Berry and somebody else, I'd be like, I'd love to take the movie. I want to get paid, but is it really realistic? I mean, you know, are they really going to look at it? No, let's be honest. You know what I mean? I ain't the, you know, I got a bad back. I'm not even young anymore. Get out of here. And yeah, I'm not Idris Elba. Okay, I'm 5'11". I don't think that they're chasing after some 5'11" schmuck with a bad back. He ain't what he used to be. You know what I mean? I can get around. You wouldn't know I have a bad back, just like anybody else. You know, we got bad knees. Let's face it. You get in your 50s and up. You got a bad knee. You got a bad ankle. You got a bad back. You got a crick in your neck. Whatever the hell, right? Halle Berry ain't chasing after you. Let's not pretend that Garland Nixon is going to be the heartthrob of the movie that they're all chasing. And let's not pretend that this lady, she may be a great actress, great in a lot of movies, but this wasn't realistic. And so that's what happens. We watch these movies. I do. I watch movies. If it's going to be a zombie movie, I don't look for realism. If it's going to be a comedy, great, make a comedy. But if you're making a movie that's supposed to be real, then don't cover up, you know, a reality. I'll put it like this too. And when I looked at it, one thing's obvious. It's obvious that they don't want a woman, the woman, to be sexually attractive. They didn't want, you know, like they used to. There'd be Linda Carter, or there'd be some woman with a tight outfit. There'd be Pretty Woman, right? Can you imagine? You watch the movie Pretty Woman. That was a damn good movie because they actually used a woman that was pretty. That's the name of the movie. You expect a pretty woman in the movie Pretty Woman, right? Not today. If they made Pretty Woman, it'd be like Amy Schumer or something would be in Pretty Woman now. You know, that's what they do for Pretty Woman today. Yeah, sorry, no, you know, you know, disrespect to Amy Schumer. I'm just saying that wouldn't be the movie for her. That she could probably do some good movies. Pretty Woman, Halle Berry. There you go. Throw her in Pretty Woman. Whoever the hell, right? But now they literally, it's like Hollywood has to say. It's almost like this. Women are not sexual objects to be objectified. Therefore, we're not going to put an attractive woman with a sexy outfit in the movie anymore. So we can teach you not to objectify sexually women. For starters and enders, here's the issue. We're not watching movies. This is what they get. They don't get. We ain't watching movies to get taught a cultural lesson. I don't go to the movies to learn a cultural lesson. I go to the movies because I want to watch a good movie. Look, Aliens, one of my favorite movies of all time. And what's her name? The woman, the aliens woman in Alien, Sigourney Weaver. She kicked ass and took names, and we loved it, right? How about Sarah Connor? It's not that you can't have a movie with a woman that's a lead and a woman that's the toughest person in a movie. That's not, you know, fine. But in Aliens, you know, it didn't come across as contrived. That's all I'm saying. It didn't come across as contrived. How about Predator 2? They had Danny Glover. he didn't come across as, hey, they've got a diverse black guy now to fight the predator. He was Danny Glover. He was sweaty. His clothes were wrinkly. He had a bad attitude. It was Danny Glover was great. That's Danny Glover. That's what he does. You know, you watch these movies with Samuel L. Jackson. He's got a bad attitude. He curses everybody. Great. Wonderful. They don't come across as contrived. It doesn't come across like they're trying to teach us a cultural lesson that we don't want to learn. Let me put it to you like this. Hollywood has their culture, right? It is what it is. And you can see Hollywood's culture in the movies. However, not everybody has the same culture. So here's my point. If I went to that same small town in Mississippi that I drove through, they got a culture there. They may like, I don't know, coon hunting. Hey, what are you going to do? Let's go get the dogs. We're going to tree a raccoon, right? And then we're going to go bass fishing, and then we're going to go whatever. This is what we do in this small town. We do hunting and fishing and, you know, mossy oak. How about that? Oh, then we're going to go put new brakes on the pickup truck. They do things there in their local culture that may not, you know, they may like country music, things like that, right? That's their culture in that particular Mississippi town, and they enjoy their lives and they have fun and they do that stuff. More power to them. But imagine if they started making movies in this small town and every movie they made was about raccoon hunting, varmint hunting, was about how to skin a armadillo or I don't know, whatever the hell, you know what I mean? How to catch a blue-tailed gator, right? Hey, how to fix your pickup truck. Every movie was about that. And then they put it out worldwide and they had advertisements. And now another movie about how to skin a varmint. Varmint hunting, that's what you want to do. Get your 410 shotgun, go out there, and there's rabbits and squirrels and all kind of varmint, and you can make soup out of varmints. Nothing like varmint soup. And that was all that. No, who the hell would watch those? Nobody. Only people, the few people that like varmint hunting. Why? Because it is a local culture. It is local to that area. And you can't force it on everybody and tell everybody I'm teaching you how to be a varmint hunter. That's what I see in Hollywood. They got a local culture, and what they're trying to say is everybody has to have this culture. And conveniently, the culture that they're pushing is not even in the best interest of the groups that they're pretending to support. And it does happen to be in the best interest of the international war machine. That's what it's in the best interest of. And people can inherently pick that up and recognize that they're being snookered. And they're like, man, I don't like that. And again, if you say, man, I ain't buying into that crap. I want to see a movie with some aliens or some blowing something up or something. Or I want to see whatever, you know what I mean? A love story, whatever you're into, right? I like aliens, werewolves, things like that. That's what I want to see. I don't need a diverse group of werewolves. Just give me one good werewolf that tears people to shreds. There we go. Good work there, right? We know we're being snookered and we don't like it. And guess what? And people aren't going to the movies anymore. They're not going to see them because they're contrived. Not because they're racist or sexist or they don't want to see a strong one, because they recognize that they're contrived and we don't like contrived movies. And I don't want to go see a movie with a diverse group of werewolves that are fighting against the male patriarchy in their werewolf town. No, thank you. That are led by a female werewolf, a diverse group of werewolves led by a female werewolf. Yeah, no, I don't need that. I just want werewolves. Just tear people to shreds, run. Some guy comes with a silver bullet, in the end, shoots the werewolf. But somebody else has been scratched, and we don't know whether or not that person's going to turn into a werewolf. Therefore, up comes the sequel, Son of Werewolf. But I can live great. Yeah, I don't care that I know what's going to happen. Just give me werewolves. And they don't have to be a diverse group of, werewolves. Hey, what do you got? Well, let's see. We've got gay werewolves. We've got a non-gendered, non-binary werewolf. No, it's contrived and I'm being had. Thanks a lot, everybody. Oh, by the way, last but not least, I'm back. I've been out of town, but I'm getting back in the groove here. Do me a favor, share this on all your social media platforms. Also, don't forget, everything's run across the bottom there. Go to rockfin.com/Garland Nixon. Become a member. Doesn't cost anything. However, if you can afford it, please become a subscriber to my Rockfin channel. It's $14.99 a month for those who can afford it. If you can't, don't worry about it. Also, Patreon, you know the story on that. PayPal, buy me a coffee, and my Cash App is information. All that information is down there. If you can afford to help the channel, I would appreciate it. Most importantly, attack the like button, smash the like button, punch the like button, beat the like button unmercifully. Dispatch of the like button with extreme prejudice. Okay, to help the algorithm. Or you can just click on the like button if you so choose. And lastly but not least, most importantly, share this on all your social media platforms. Peace. I'm out.